Hey SOPA delegates, I'm Debra Mao. I'm the bureau chief for Bloomberg here in Taiwan. I'm here with former President Ma Ying-jeou of Taiwan, who, as you've heard, very much regrets not being able to be with you there in Hong Kong. So while he's here, we're going to take the opportunity to ask some questions from the SOPA committee. So Mr. Ma, thank you for spending some extra time with us. We're wondering, now, would you consider Taiwan's system of government and democracy a model for mainland China or for Hong Kong?
Well, so far, Taiwan's democracy, I think, has been probably the most developed in the Chinese community in the world. But we still have problems that we have to deal with. Compared to Hong Kong and mainland China, I think we do have something we can share with them. I think, for instance, if you analyze democracy, it's follow the majority, respect the minority, and tolerate dissent. I think the third one is probably the most important one.
Now, there are many people in Hong Kong who feel that their freedom of expression and to a certain extent the freedom of the press is now under threat, and even raising questions about whether one country, two systems is a viable model. What are your thoughts on this?
I think, as I said, we should start with the tolerate the dissent, and let people get used to a democratic society where dissent has to be tolerated. And this is not something from the West. 2,500 years ago in ancient China, in the kingdom of Zheng, a person named, official named Zican, decided not to shut down a school where people gather after work in the afternoon and talk about politics. And he said by listening to them, he will learn something. And so he decided not to shut it down. And this is a very good example for Hong Kong and for mainland China. The whole story is called 子产不毁乡校. Mr. Zican refused to shut down the country school. This is something I always emphasize because this is not an imported idea. This is 100% indigenous. So I think maybe we should reread the whole story and learn from the wisdom of our ancestors.
So when Beijing says it's a Western concept?
No, not the case.
And with China's presence sort of in influence in the world getting larger, how important is the freedom for the peoples of Hong Kong and Taiwan to freely express their art and their language and their freedom to publish their ideas? And I know you mentioned orthodox characters earlier. Can you say more about the importance of that?
Well, before the advent of the simplified characters, the orthodox Chinese character have been used for thousands of years. Has become a very important tradition of our culture. The change that took place on mainland China certainly had a lot of impact on the language itself. I think the best way is not to create or to enlarge the dichotomy, but rather we should take an inclusive view of the whole. Just recently, Taiwan and mainland China scholars cooperate to publish a dictionary of orthodox and simplified Chinese characters. They collected more than 100,000 entries, and the most important style of that is they juxtaposed the simplified and orthodox characters so that people will get used to that. If you look at the essence of the difference isn't that great. So you could always find a way to be inclusive and not exclusive.
And then finally, going to U.S. politics now, is there any advice you would give to the next U.S. president, whether it be Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, on how to handle the South China Sea?
Well, actually, I've been studying the issue, not just in South China Sea, but also in East China Sea. And the fundamental concept for dispute settlement is that while national territory cannot be national sovereignty cannot be divided or compromised, but natural resources can be shared. We used that model to solve the East China Sea problem and eventually concluded a fishery agreement with Japan. So just about a year ago, I proposed the South China Sea Peace Initiative. Briefly said, it is the idea that, first of all, shelve the dispute. Secondly, jointly develop the resources by having a comprehensive plan. And then the third stage is zonal development. We divide the whole area into different zones and trying to ask the claimants to develop the resources together. This is probably the only way out. If the confrontation on escalation of tension continues, there will be no solution at all. So that is why I think the South China Sea Peace Initiative I proposed just about a year ago could be a useful reference.
And do you think the U.S. is doing enough?
I don't know, but I keep telling them that in East Asia, the way of dispute settlement is a little bit different from that in the West. Here, countries do not favor third-party adjudication. They prefer negotiations.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, SOPA.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, members of SOPA. And I hope we have a chance to talk to you again sometime, maybe in Taiwan. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.